Hello everybody, this is Heflamoke here and you're listening to the Target Episode 8. Today I have the second JD member actually joined Dota. Last week was Toby Van, and now pretty much the newest acquirement of the Join Dota company, or Freaks for You, whatever you want to call them, one of the oldest forces in the Dota 2 universe pretty much. He joined them about half a year ago, is that right?
Yeah, January, 1st of January. So yeah, about 6 months, 7 months ago now. It's
Yeah,
already July. Time has flown by pretty quickly.
it's more than half a year even. So Durka joins me today, and of course, guys, we have some interesting topics to talk about. First, we start pretty much with all the basics. So, you joined 7 month, joined Dota, and before all that, you're a British citizen, right? That is
Yeah.
still up to date. But you have not been living in the UK for a very long time because you actually been traveling with your parents. You already said that on some interviews, but I still want to give the viewers that might not know you that much the impression, like, why you're such a global player when it comes to this.
Yeah, I was born in England, in the north of England, in a small sort of city called Bradford. But I think when I was about 7 years old, something like that, my parents were both teachers. They thought, screw this country, let's forget England. Moved to Indonesia for about 7 or 8 months, and
Yeah.
they taught there, lived there for a while. We had to leave because there was political turmoil, and the president was being overthrown. There were guys with like AKs in the streets and stuff like that. So we packed up and left. Went back to England for a while. I lived in Saudi, lived in Brunei near Malaysia for 6 or 7 years. So when I get the question, where are you from? It's kind of an awkward, like, do you want the long answer or do you want the just where was I born kind of answer to it? But,
Yeah.
but you know, I've traveled around quite a lot, and I don't see England as like my home country. I don't feel, English. I obviously have English heritage, but and I'm a British citizen. But yeah, I've lived abroad for a lot of my life, and Southeast Asia was where I really got into playing computer games, PC games.
Yeah. So, but that's actually a interesting thing you say there. So you don't really feel at home in the UK. Um, what would you say when I ask you, like, where's home for you?
I I think I can answer this question in sort of two parts. Like, if I was to choose a home, I'd go and live in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Brunei,
Yeah.
somewhere in Southeast Asia. That would be like the ideal home for me. Like actual home, I don't know, because my parents they split up about 5 years ago. So my dad lives in the Middle East. My mum lives in London, so I don't have like a set home. But
Hmm.
more recently, I lived in North London with my mum for a while. So that's where a lot of my family lives. So I kind of say maybe North London is home, but
Yeah.
Southeast Asia, I'd definitely go back there and live there.
How do you do it with the whole visiting now? I mean, when they're like split up, pretty much across the world, there's like what 4, 5, 6,000 kilometers between them. That's quite interesting when it comes to visiting. You visit your dad, you just go down there, and then at some other, I don't know, time of the year, you go to your mom.
I lived with my mum in North London, so my dad would come and visit my sister, my brother, and myself, sort of summer, Christmas, major holidays. So
Yeah.
it was easier for him to come and see us than, sort of fly 3 or 4 people across to him.
So you still sort of gather as a family, or at least as like the smaller parts of the family, depending on how they all get along with each other for the major, the
Yeah,
usual family stuff, where everybody just gets on each other's nerve.
sharing
Everybody has that.
holidays.
Yes, yes, the
Yeah.
horrible stuff that I successfully dodge all the time. Like, it's even on my birthday. No, on my birthday I unplug the telephone,
Oh
internet.
man.
I'm on D&D, and my door's closed. The bell is off. Nobody gets even in on my birthday. So yeah. Anyway, it's actually quite interesting. I mean, that means you actually got the impression of many countries out there. You said Southeast Asia was the start for you for video games. Just to get the age right, you're 25 right now, or are you
Oh my
26?
God. This is a problem. Like, you bring up birthdays. This is a problem I have. Ever since I turned 18, like, I haven't paid attention to birthdays. I was born in 18. How old am I? Am I 25 or 26? Oh, she's not listening to me. She's busy. I'm 26 now.
26 now. So
So
yeah,
I was born in June 89, so I'm 26.
yes. Then you're
I
20,
I
26.
I have issues with this.
Because no, I think I watched an interview of you that was February or something like that, and I think there they wrote 25. So I just wanted to make sure because you also mentioned in another interview that you started with FPS games, right? It was Counter Strike for you, 1.6.
CS 1.5. I played Battlefield 1942. We
Yeah.
played a lot of these games, and like Warcraft 3 and things like that were mini games. We'd go and play them for half an hour as a break between sort of playing tournaments or LAN events of
Yeah.
CS:GO. It's not CS:GO 1.5.
CS:GO, yeah, it's just ringing on the tongue. Anyway, that's actually very interesting because that's the 5 years difference between us. Like I started like really Counter Strike when it pretty much came out with the 1.0, and it's very interesting to see that also people still made it from Counter Strike into other games than later, and the experience is pretty much the same. Dota was when it came to the Dota 1 games, like the what did we call it? Like it was just maps pretty much. Like
Yeah.
you had that horrible client in World of Warcraft 3, then you clicked on it, and you had to download it. Some people made a spot out of it and downloaded like everything. And yeah, that was more or less a game for breaks and everything. When did you actually go for the real Dota, like with a ladder, a league, a tournament, a team, something around
Oh. Um,
that?
um, I lived in Brunei for like 5 years, and so I lived in Brunei for 5 years, and I finished my sort of first bit of education until I was 16, GCSEs in England or British curriculum, and I went back to England to do my A levels, which is like a college before you go to university. And when I was in England for about a year, I played on Eurobattle.net, which was a private server
Yeah,
before Garena, before RGC or any of the other pseudo LAN clients came out. I played there for a while, and that's where I really got into it. I was staying up until 5 in the morning playing games. I was just like sitting on my PC playing nonstop, and I met a lot of fun people. It was kind of interesting actually getting in touch with a lot of people that I'd known. What was it now? 7 years ago.
yeah,
And 2 or 3 years ago, I actually got back in touch with a lot of these people I played because obviously Dota 2 comes out, people start playing again. They realize, hang on, I'm on Steam. Let's see if this guy still exists. Adds me on Steam. Hey, look, it's this guy I haven't talked to in
yeah.
7 years. How are you doing?
Actually, I mean, do you remember when Steam came out, how horrible it was for everyone? For example, on Counter-Strike LANs, right? You were going to a LAN with your PC, like the real old school style, with your heavy monitor, your PC. It was horrible. You had to go there with the car. You build everything up, and then at some point they added Steam, and then it was not compatible when there was a patch, so you couldn't play it offline and stuff like that. That was actually the time I remember. So Steam, that's the funny part. Even till now, Steam always has like a negative touch to it when I hear Steam. I know now it's great. It's a great platform, provides a lot of games. It's a marketplace. Dota came out of it. Valve is behind it and whatnot. But I don't know why. But Steam still sounds to me like a horrible thing. It's just a bad memory, I guess.
I never had these issues. In Southeast Asia, we played on like in LAN cafes, and we didn't
Yeah.
have Steam. I don't think there was a single legitimate game in any of the cafes. They'd all be cracked games. Warcraft 3 that they bought once and installed on all the PCs. Counter Strike was no different. I was just trying to look up now quickly. I don't know when I first installed Steam, but I think it was, shortly before Dota 2 came out. I went right years of service. I've owned Steam. I've had Steam for 4 years. So 2011. So yeah, slightly before Dota 2 came out, in the
Yeah.
beta client.
Pretty much.
So I never had to experience that whole sort of CS 1.6 Steam nonsense. I haven't had it for the 10 years that I know a lot of people had, but
No, it was this transition period where suddenly the esports scene moved from the LAN events into the online events because the internet just got better. Suddenly we had beyond the 56K or actually the 128. It was back then in Germany. So yeah, and then suddenly it was possible to actually play online, like reasonably. Okay, let's not talk about the past. We still a bit about the past, but more recent. You had one event that pretty much was before you officially joined Dota. That was the IESF, right?
Mhm.
You went there with Cap and Toby, if I recall correctly, and the whole thing was in Azerbaijan. Tell me about that because I'm really curious. How is Azerbaijan?
it was kind of surreal. The whole country, because like obviously we've been over. I've lived in a lot of countries. I lived in Saudi Arabia for a while. Lived in Europe.
Yeah.
Landing in Azerbaijan, the first sort of view you get is of the airport, and the airport was basically like I don't know if you've been to Dubai airport, but any of
Yeah.
the big Arabic city airports, it's glorious looking. You know that it's got oil or gas money behind it. They've made this airport to look really nice. You exit the country, everyone's got these big, like Mercedes Benz. They've got all the big 4x4 cars, and I thought, hey, this is just like Qatar or Saudi Arabia, all these places I've been to, the weather was kind of European. It was a bit chilly,
Yeah.
and then the people there, I don't know, is this sort of weirdest mix of European, Southeast Asian hospitality. Everyone's super friendly, people walking down the streets, but there was a lot of police around, which, was slightly disconcerting. It was very,
Yeah.
I don't know, government focused, I want to say. And when I was looking up about the country, a lot of people employed in Azerbaijan are employed by the government. So I think that sort of got something to do with it. As obviously they're
Yeah.
trying to cut down on unemployment and they're doing their best to do that. But I don't know, it felt a bit surreal, but not in a bad way. It just was something I'd never experienced before. But it was a nice country.
But you as a foreigner, you never had any problem there because I mean, if you actually read up on Azerbaijan, I mean, by Western standards, it's not like the cleanest democracy of all times, right? So and you mentioned the police, and I was like, okay, right, yeah, that fits the description. No, but as a foreigner, you never had any problem, right? The
No.
good or bad experience, as in you being treated badly or people being that poor that they bag you and you feel bad as a foreigner.
No, nothing like that at all. There was, I think someone got in a little bit of trouble because they were drunk and walking down the streets. They were just told to go back to the hotel after one of the
Yeah.
after parties. But no, nothing went wrong. I don't think anyone got into any serious trouble. And obviously, if there's an event there, it was all sponsored or built up by the Azerbaijani, was it Sports and Youth Federation? I can't remember the exact name, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a government sort of funded and allocated event. So there were obviously things in place to say, right, these guys are here. They're representing, ISF. They're here from this sort
Yeah.
of worldwide event. So make sure they have a good time.
Okay, that's actually quite an interesting thing. So besides my normal topics we want to go down, there was this agency, and it's actually at least partly state funded. That actually, yeah, pops up the idea. What do you think about the whole transition that more and more states get some sort of, okay, internet department is kind of normal in every state now,
Yeah.
just because of security purposes and whatnot, but like specifically an esport department or something around IT and video games. I mean, that's popping up in many, even Southeast Asian countries. You have even senators, like, I don't know, I can't even remember the name, but the Philippines,
Over in the
for
Philippines,
example,
yeah.
that are Dota 2 fans. You have even people in China that help with visas right now because they are in a political position and help the people. So more and more esport people like entering also like the real jobs and also jobs in position of power. That's actually quite a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we absolutely need this, and it's something that I've been talking to a lot of UK people about. Obviously, I still have my roots back in the UK from the Dota scene, where ISF, good segue from this topic,
Yeah.
the UK doesn't have one of these agencies for the ISF. So there's, South Africa, Romania, China, all these people are part of ISF, and they've got their own, sort of national embassies, whatever you want to call them, that then sort out qualifiers, send teams to the events, and set up the whole event nationally. But the UK doesn't have one. They used to, I believe, but it sort of crumbled. They didn't have the funding anymore.
Yeah.
But I think the trouble is that a lot of these agencies so far have been third party. They've not been government funded. They've not been sort
Yeah,
of
exactly.
allocated by the government. They've just been grassroots, movements that have built up from the bottom. I know that South Africa has had a few troubles with their one, but there's also, you think about FIFA. That's, a third party agency or overruling. They're basically the overlords of football, and they've
Yeah.
got their national agencies. If we had something that moved away from the FIFA kind of model and towards, I can't think of a good example, but something that was, more see-through, more open, then I'd really like to see that.
But that's the biggest problem. I mean, FIFA is probably the best example. Of course, now in a bad light, like recently. But I just can't think of any other model because FIFA is sort of like the free market model where you have that agency that just combines
Yeah.
everyone and like everybody kind of accept it, because if you don't go along the FIFA guidelines, then you're isolated. Then you can have your regional league in somewhere in Timbuktu, and that's it. You can never even step out of your country as an athlete. So there's sort of a monopoly there, and the ties to the governments, well, I think their economy just rules. If we, however, just give it to the hands of governments, I think they're completely incompetent. Because the fact is, I don't think anyone like around like politics,
yeah.
not many, they don't even know what we are doing, what this is, and what kind of yeah, value this all has also to society and whatnot. It's more or less the economy pushing politics at the moment to go further steps. At least that's the way I feel at the moment.
Yeah, the biggest problem is always who do you put in control? Who is in charge? Which person's going to be the president? Do you vote them in? Who votes them in? You know, do you want a democracy? Do you want someone to take the reins and actually take control of this and do it themselves? There's always a balance between, you know, someone who knows what they're doing, who has the experience, and then
Yeah.
actually taking into the account the feelings of the public.
By the way, talking about still a bit about Azerbaijan. I mean, there was a stream. They also showed the venue, but as far as I can remember, the whole thing was pretty much empty. At least on camera, it looked like it, right?
There were not too many spectators from the country. I didn't see. There were a lot of people like at the events, you know, competing, performing, whatever. I did get to meet a couple of Azerbaijanis, relatively young people. I think they were, you know, sort of 14, 15-year-old people that did turn up to actually go and watch the event. And one of the interesting things was the intro. I can't remember what exactly they called it, but where they had like Azerbaijani dancing and music and things like that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it like packed out. There were the seats were all full.
Okay. And that being said, okay, so there was not the craziest response at first, but then people came, maybe not even directly related to Dota, just because they were given the opportunity to attend such an event. Talking about other scenes, because it's also like, I don't know, a little project of mine. There are so many scenes that have problems with access to the internet, to esports, to organized events and everything. Like, since you've seen it in Azerbaijan and since you came around just, yeah, for family matters, it was just a biography thing. Like, is that sort of a project, I don't know, for your life? You're now in a position where you can bring Dota or any other esport for that matter in the next years to regions that are maybe not even explored yet?
Um, it it's not something that I'm, you know, looking at doing, but it'd be kind of interesting. You know, this whole talk about having an overruling sort of agency. I know a lot of players have been talking about this before, like a player agency for sorting out contracts and things like that. It'd be good to have something. I don't know if it has to be Dota 2 specific or overall in general for esports, but what kind of region would you sort of look at and think, you know, they're underdeveloped in terms of esports, in terms of gaming?
Well,
Because
I mean, at the moment, for example, I live around the Balkans. I live currently in Hungary, which is, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much the same story as you. I'm like everywhere and nowhere. Like, home is where I have my internet connection, pretty much. That's how I would have answered the question. So for me, I experience at the moment, of course, a lot of what's going on in Romania. So there's actually a lot of stuff going on. We have the DreamHack there, the Starlet that was brought there. A lot of new esports are getting picked up. The PGL studios, Bucharest.
yeah.
Now, thanks to the European Union, we had like what Cluj-Napoca is getting around IT and therefore also esports a lot of publicity. But if you go a bit south, for example, Bulgaria is pretty much dead when it comes to like events or anything. Of course, it also has like also I guess economic reasons. In June, I was on an event in Serbia, which is really like complete grassroots project. It's like one guy in Serbia saying, "Hey, I'll make an event. I'll try to get as good as possible teams there, and yeah, just make the event." It was from an organizational point of view, from my standards, how I know events, it was horrible. But the fact is, I see so much potential in these countries because I mean, if you even look at the numbers of these events, it's so much cheaper. I think the entire event costed as much as in Germany, for example, a venue would have costed. If I rent
Wow.
something in Berlin, that was the entire cost for the event. For them, of course, it's a lot of money, but I'm just saying you can actually scale this. And there are a lot of countries where you can do something like this. So maybe shout out to some organizers out there. Go explore new countries because the people love Dota. Doesn't matter which country, or esports for that matter, but it always needs someone who actually does something in those countries.
Yeah, now you sort of bring up Serbia and Bulgaria, and it's kind of weird thinking about that because back on Garena, the majority of people that I played with in Dota 1 were from Macedonia,
Yeah,
Serbia,
yeah,
Bulgaria, the Balkans. They love their esports, they love playing video
yeah,
games, but yeah, thinking about events there just aren't really that many
yeah.
at
It,
all.
they are like community-wise, they have like a lot of people that also sometimes are gathered in forums or communities, but like that next step that happened in other countries. I mean, the funny part is if you look at the UK scene, if you look at even the German scene, and you're in touch with pretty much both, maybe now that you're in Berlin and you have been in the UK scene, if it wasn't about ESL and some regional organizers and maybe Gfinity and stuff like that, I think would be horrible. But okay, it's kind of developed. Still, the next step, if you compare it, for example, to Sweden. I mean, in Sweden, esports is a whole new level there. Like a lot more organizations, a lot more sponsorship, bigger events. You have entire like TV channels just devoted to esports and everything. I mean, they're in comparison to Germany, for example, on a whole new level.
I think like I can use UK as an example here. It comes down like perfectly as you described it. It was one guy pretty much, a guy called Will that I got in touch with. Oh God, was it 2 years ago in February? I think it was a year and a half ago, whatever it was. But we had the first UK sort of Dota mini LAN, and it was actually held in. We didn't know this at the time, but Sujoy's LAN cafe in the Trocadero. I can't remember what it was called, but he owned these little LAN cafes, and we held it there. It was sponsored by Dota Talk, so we had Jaron, the guy from Dota Talk, who obviously has some interesting history now, but back then we didn't know what he was up to. But yeah,
interesting figure, that guy.
Yeah. Yep. But we had our first Dota LAN there. We had like 15, 16 teams, something like that. I cast it from a back room. It was not ideal circumstances for casting. I had to get someone else to try and help me stream it out as well. So there was a couple of us doing that. And then there's this guy called Will with the help of a couple of his friends who managed to push this. So he's saying, look, this is an event that, or this is a game that people are interested in.
Yeah.
Insomnia Gaming Festival, which is run by Multiplay.
Yeah.
They've done, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike. They've done all these games before, StarCraft, obviously. So they managed to pick us up. They said at I-49, they were like, okay, well, who do we get to cast it? Who do we get to cast these games? Well, there's Hurian Flax, who had just, sort of shot to fame with his YouTube videos. So we had him, myself, casting at I-49. And from then on, it was just this sort of stampede of UK events. The first one we did, we said, okay, well, we'll do it as, like a favor. We'll do it. We won't get paid. Just send us there. Give us the train fare. Give us somewhere to sleep. A little bit of food. We'll cast your 3-day event for you.
Yes.
Then obviously the next event comes along. They say, okay, well, we'll give you a bit of money here. And ESL starts getting interested. ESL UK starts kicking up, and they've got their studio. They start getting more casters in. Obviously, there's Josho, Rusts, OD Pixel, all of these guys have come through from Multiplay, from ESL. Then there's Epic LAN, which is more of a sort of community-based LAN. They do some smaller tournaments, and it's probably my favorite LAN to actually go and participate in rather than work at, because you go and drink, you have fun with friends. There's a lot more of a community vibe there. But it's kind of interesting that it took a while for people to pick up on this. And even though from the inside, once you're in these events, you think, hey, look, there's 3,000 people here, there's 6,000 people here, all with their computers, all playing video games.
Yeah.
You still then compare that to the 60 million in the country, and you think, well, there's still a stigma against PC gaming. There is still this thought that, they're going to an event for 3 days, they're going to go and play computer games.
Oh yeah.
But now I'm loving the fact that big sort of industrial like newspapers, big TV channels. The BBC has done a lot. The Guardian, the Times. Yeah. I did a short little interview with Matt from the Times at ESL1. He was looking for British people to talk to, people who'd gone over to visit ESL1, talk about Dota, talk about esports, and the same topic comes up. You look at South Korea, you look at Sweden, you mentioned, you look at all these countries, Eastern Europe, Poland, there is no stigma against PC games. Or if there is, it's not overtly in your face saying, ha, they're nerds, they're playing computer games, what are they doing?
The basement cliche, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's not really happening there. Okay, it's kind of interesting, though, the development of these events, because if you actually look at it, how it developed, first we did those events, LAN events, where we really just literally took our PC out of our living room, or basement for that matter, and went to
your mom's basement.
Yeah, probably. So you went to event just because you had to. That was the only way you could compete with others, because you had to have a LAN, a local area network, literally. Then came the internet, and to be honest, and that's the funny part, till deep into the 2000s, like the internet actually killed the LAN culture for me, because for me I always hated the fact that I had to carry my monitor around, which was approximately, I don't know, 200 kilos, at least that's how it felt. And I don't know, then there came this period of like, I don't know, was it 10 years internet gaming? But now that's the funny part. After all these years that like you have the top teams accessible, you can watch everything, download everything, connect with everybody on the internet. I kind of miss the events, and now that I'm on like on DreamHack or other LANs or self-organized events, it's kind of nice to bring that back, because it brings you back to the roots of where it all started. I don't know if other people can connect it the same way. Maybe for them it's just fun. Hey, I'll go there. There are giveaways. There are some signatures for pro players. But for me, this is really just back to the grassroots.
Yeah, I think it's the same for players as well. Because you look at the amount of online tournaments that happened, let's say between 2002 and 2010, there's millions of online tournaments. LANs were pretty hard to come by. But now, I really like the old DreamHack in Sweden, their model of the BYOC, and you could actually play in an open sort of tournament to get to play with the big teams. I think tournaments like that, or open online tournaments that could then lead into LAN events, that has rejuvenated the feel and the need for actual LAN events for people to pick up their PCs, or at least pay. It's why there's a bunch of companies now where you can actually hire PCs for LAN events. People have made a living out of this because they're seeing a lot more people want to go to LAN events, but they don't necessarily want to pick up their PC, pick up their monitor, get on a train. That's the biggest thing. Getting on a train or a plane, lugging your
PC,
with your PC, and then with your clothes and your backpack and your monitor and everything else. So being able to hire out a PC and just turn up and play, that's pretty good.
Well, it probably wouldn't work for me. I'm a very, I don't know, very specific guy.
You like your setup?
Yeah. It has to be my setup. Even the size of my monitor and everything, it has to be very specific. So otherwise, I can't play. Trust me, I dropped 2000 MMR the second you swap any peripheral or something like that. Either way. Going a bit back to the whole caster thing, we already said it, joined 7 months, joined Dota. Before that, you were having the IESF event, but even before that, you have been casting on like smaller events. There was some UK stuff you did before. You were actually with Toby on the Join Dota stream before, because I know you from before you actually joined Dota. You were a name to me on the Join Dota stream before you actually ever joined Dota officially, right?
Yeah, that's going back like 2.5, 3 years ago, something along those lines.
At least 3 years, 2 years minimum, yeah.
Yeah, but I was co-casting with Toby, with Cap. I jumped on a few times. Yeah, UK events. I did Epic LAN, Insomnia, ESL. I think I've done pretty much every UK event under the sun since Dota started, minus one or minus two, I think.
Yeah.
I've done the majority of them.
What actually changed from back then to pretty much the point where you joined Dota? I mean, everybody knows why Join Dota wanted additional caster. They did it once with Cap, and it was sort of a success. I mean, Cap was like, who the fuck is Cap? What does he do? Where does he come from? And he was like always in the shadow of Toby Van, and he developed out of it because there was also, of course, the necessity to get additional caster. Then Join Dota like had that little silent period where the community describes it as in Join Dota is dead. They're beyond the summit, beat them with their monopoly, whatever.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, Join Dota. Reddit was totally nuts about it. And the fact is, there was so much content and everything coming in that they needed a caster. And on the podcast, Toby literally said, decision was easy. They needed someone they know, someone that can do play-by-play, someone who can go solo, but also someone who we can mix in with us, with Cap and Toby, as a caster that can adapt. So they described you probably as a very adaptable caster. You can go as a caster in multiple roles, but still, like from back then, 2 years ago, when you were already casting, what changed? Like, when came the decision that you actually want to go for like the professional thing, for the real thing?
I don't think anything really changed. It was always like a hobby to me. I'd jump on when I had spare time. I never sort of set my sights until I don't know, sort of a year ago or something like that, when I thought, oh, this is something I can do. This is something that maybe I have a chance. I talked with Toby, said, there's a potential for a trial. We might, bring you over for like 6 months and see how things go. Obviously, IESF was a bit of a trial run. It all worked out well in the end. I think it was a great a great advantage to be able to go and meet Toby and Cap because I'd never
Yeah.
really met them in real life before. I sort of, in passing, shook hands, said hi, had a few drinks at the ESL1 Frankfurt last year. I think that's the only time that I met Toby and Cap sort of face to face was the first ESL1 Frankfurt. Apart from that, it was all online on Skype. So getting to meet them, hang out with them, and actually get to know each other was really great. But I yeah, it was always like a hobby for me for the past 3 years or more. The fact that I was going like on the weekends, if I did a UK event, let's say in June there was the Summerland Insomnia Gaming Festival. They said, okay, we'll give you this amount of money. We'll give you train tickets and bring
Yeah.
you over. I was like, right, I'll book off holiday from work. I'll take off Friday and Monday, and that was like a holiday for me. That was a hobby. I enjoyed myself
Yeah.
and I had fun with it. But it was never in my mind as this is something that I should make my vocation.
Okay, so
Until
it got
relatively
real
recently.
when Toby pretty much said, "Hey, there's an opportunity, take it, go for it," and then it kind of just solidified into reality.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so you're one of those guys who's actually just really just jumping from one puddle to the other till you land in pretty much a pretty swimming pool and enjoy your day. Okay, that's actually very interesting because I mean other people they work directly for it. They're like, yes, my name is Durka. I'm having this as a hobby, but I want to really go into esports. I work towards it. I'm gonna apply and whatnot. And for you, it was more like, yeah, it is an option, and then it just happened, I guess.
It's sort of a bit of both. I obviously did sort of work towards it, but not directly. I was doing it as a hobby, and I always knew that there was, that path that I could take. It's just that I wasn't, directly looking at the map and trying to find out where the path led or how to get to that path. I knew it was there, but I don't know if I was scared to follow it because, in your mind, if you're thinking, oh, I can become an esports caster, I obviously still had doubts thinking, well, what happens next? If it fails, what do I do afterwards? If this works for a year, if this works for 2 years, what do I do after? So I'm kind of glad that I got the job I did before I came to Berlin. I worked for about a year and a half doing logistics in a warehouse, and I got some real life experience, if I can put it like that. So I've got something to go back to. So I'm kind of glad that I did it as a hobby and knew that I had the opportunity if I wanted to actually push forwards, and that's where we are now.
Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting. So let's just go away from the whole idea. How did I get there? Now we are there. We are enjoying Dota. You go to Berlin. As far as I know, you did not just go yourself. You even brought your girlfriend there. But that's another topic. Let's just talk about you actually going to join Dota. You go to Berlin, enter the studios. You said in many interviews it's really like a family thing. I mean, you got introduced. It's very family-like, so you kind of felt comfortable from the very beginning. But I wanna know, what is a normal work day for you? I mean, I'm not talking about the cast. It's not talking about like, hey, I'm going into the studio at 9 a.m. because a game starts. You still go into your workplace even without a cast, right? What are you actually doing in the studio?
In the first 3 months or so, it was very sort of hands-on. There was a lot to cast. We had MLG, we had a whole bunch of content to produce. So the first 3 months or so, it was just casting non-stop, and that was pretty much it. Now it's quietened down a bit. We've still got contracts to fulfill. We've got content we need to produce. So right now, all of us, it's not just myself. We're looking at what content we need to produce, timelines for it. So we're actually coming up with concepts for non-casting content. We're looking for
What's that exactly?
I've got a couple of things that are work in process, but we're obviously looking at we did some trials the other week. We did some scrim nights where Blitz is sort of taking the lead and taking us through the sort of mindset and how people go through scrims and how drafting phase works and actually playing serious games. But I think that's going to be like Honey, Milk, Cap, Blitz, and maybe someone else that will be doing that. We'll be doing some custom map, runs, a couple of hero combo things for Overthrow. But we've got some more interesting ones which are still work in process. I can't really reveal anything else.
No, it's not about the details. It's just but how can I actually see this? So this is gonna be content that I mean, it's non-casting content, but it's still commentary of certain content. You're gonna put that on MLG in a streaming form, and then you're gonna feed it also into the Join Dota
YouTube channel.
YouTube plus social media whole thing, and that's pretty much the content you're gonna produce. And like all the people you just mentioned, they work on similar things, or only that, or okay, I'm trying to understand like how is it like everybody in Join Dota has like their tasks, their timelines, their projects to go for. You just sit together and say like, hey guys, in this month we have to produce these content or like these 3 videos, for example. We sit together and you just do the videos.
Yeah, like someone takes the lead on the video and they drag in who they want. So let's say the one we're doing this week, I came up with, obviously the new map Overthrow came out. So I thought,
Hmm.
hey, it'd be kind of fun to think of what heroes are overpowered or are kind of fun to play in Overthrow. So Toby and I are going to sit down for 4 or 5 hours, go through a couple of hero combos and see if we can destroy people, see if we get destroyed because I'll have Toby on my team. But it's just it's little things like that. We've got some bigger things, but we're starting off small for now. See how things sort of pan out, and it's also working. Sort of partners and pairings. So
Yeah.
Toby and I have a good back and forth, and I know Cap and Blitz. They're great friends, so they've
Yeah.
got a great sort of working duo between them.
What's your MMR? Random question.
5.5K right now.
Okay. No, I was just checking if the pairs
Road.
are actually going along the MMR
No.
line. I think Toby might be the lowest of all us because
Oh
Cap.
yes.
Yeah. What is Cap? Did he ding 5K or was it 6K? I can't even
Six.
remember. It was
He
6, right?
he hit 6K like 3 weeks ago, something like that. Oh man, he was grinding. He was playing from like 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. for a good
Yeah,
three
yeah,
weeks, a
that's,
month or so like that. I do not have it in me. I cannot grind. I'll sit down, I'll play 2 ranked games, and it's like, well, that was fun. Let's play some GTA. Let's play some Fallout New Vegas or something like that. I just cannot go game after game after game. It drains me completely.
yeah, it's. I mean, MMR is a horrible cesspool of many bad people, including me, that just rage around. Like it's really. I can focus maybe on 5 MMR games, grind that 125 MMR, and then after that you play your fun hero, you lose the game, you get frustrated, and then in the end
Yeah.
you go to sleep and you're so frustrated about your horrible solo MMR. Well, that's another story. Everybody knows that story pretty much. So that's pretty much your day in a studio, and that goes how many days a week? Like, what's your workload as in like you know,
It's
hours, days?
it's difficult to say because obviously sometimes you have like a 70-hour week. Sometimes you're working, 10 hours a day or something like that, casting
Including the
non-stop.
casting?
There's no sort of office job in itself.
Hmm.
So like I'm hired as like a commentator, but I have a certain amount of hours that I'm meant to do. So now that there aren't too many games to cast, we're looking for JDL games, which will be coming out soon. That's just been announced, guys. Shout out JDL Season 7. Go and sign up. It's all up and ready. But until those come out, until those get out there, we've obviously got contracts to fulfill and we've got some content to push out. But there is no real sort of force to do X hours per day or X hours per week. So,
Okay.
because obviously it's known that some days you'll work your ass off and you'll do 3 times a full day or 2 times a full day of a normal office jobs, and some days you just have a more relaxing day, but you've still got to pull your weight.
Okay, so in theory, if you're a Join Dota employee, you got Friday something to do, you met all your timelines till Thursday, you can actually say, hey guys, I'm coming late in or not at all on Friday because there's nothing to do. And we did everything in a bunch of hours like before that week. Is that
Yeah,
possible? Okay, that's actually a nice working environment, I guess.
yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, that's interesting. It's nice to get some insight on like how the studios work because I mean it's a German company, so I could as I know the Germans,
Clock
I
in, clock out.
yes exactly I would have guessed like okay 8 hours straight plus the obligatory like 2 hours yeah on top of it that is kind of necessary or like your boss will tell you that it's absolutely necessary and they will never appear somewhere on any paper. So that's kind of the way I know the German market. Okay, let's go away from the whole Join Dota stuff, at least from the working part. Germany as such, you as a very international guy, how was the adaptation into the German society?
It's it's been good. I mean, there's nothing like I can't fault the country. I think that the biggest thing for me is moving from North London, which is it's a shithole. Like North London, London in general, a lot of English cities are awful, and I had this vision of every city being like that. You know, Southeast Asian cities, they're
Yeah.
relatively dirty for the
Yes.
most
Yeah.
part, outside of Singapore. So I kind of had this vision where like the majority of large cities I've been to were dirty. They were there were dangerous parts, and I was expecting the same from Berlin, but we're in Spandau, so we're not in Berlin. We're kind of off to the side.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
know it.
it's 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 so nice here. Like honestly, even we've been into the city once or twice. The amount of greenery here. I think the biggest shocker for me was when we went to Frankfurt last year, flying into the Frankfurt airport and just seeing the amount of forests. England doesn't have forests anymore. We don't have any freaking trees. We cut them all down in like the 1600s to make our wooden houses. I don't know how Germany has managed to keep all of your forestry, but
The funny part is Germany actually also lost like more than 2/3 of its forest,
oh,
like over the
really?
centuries. What is left right now is either really what's left, or
Or you've
what's
regrown it.
yeah, it's regrown. Like that's actually something I really like about Germany, that it became a really green country, at least pseudo green. Most people are they're green on the outside and then horrible people on the inside. But that doesn't really matter. I'm not a hippie myself, right there. When it comes to stuff like this, I'm conscious about the environment. But yeah, it's very nice to live in Germany in the areas that are green. It's very refreshing in comparison, because as a caster or in esports, you see it quite often. You travel a lot, and you see it in other cities. And yes, I guess it's a nice working environment.
Yeah.
Where are the JD Studios exactly, by the way? They're directly in the
Spandau.
center. Yeah, also there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then it's definitely a nice area. I know Spandau myself. Okay. You brought your girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Was she following you before, like that? I mean, it's quite a commitment to, of course, have a girlfriend and then say, well, I have this opportunity. Would you come with me? Like, how easy or how hard was it on her?
She was living, we were living with my mum back in North London, so we had like the attic room upstairs in her house. So
Yeah.
I was working, she was unemployed, and it was hard on her moving from Estonia to the UK because she's from Estonia originally.
Okay.
Finding a job or actually trying to fit into English, I don't know, society in general isn't easy for anyone, like anyone coming to the country fresh. So it was a lot easier for her to sort of pick up and move to Berlin and get sort of associated with the company and she got herself a 3-month trial contract to see if they could fit her in, and she
Yeah.
succeeded. Now I don't know what her role is, but she's sort of like a project assistant with the project
Okay.
manager. She does a lot of the VODs, a lot of the sort
So
of
she's
planning.
actually
Quite
JD
high.
stuff
Yeah.
alongside with you. Okay, so I mean that's fine, I guess, unless you break up. Because then you have to see her
Always
at
looking
work.
on the bright side of things.
Well, that's a typical German right there. Okay, that's I mean, it's good. It could have also, you know, go for the bad option, like her having a trial, not being accepted, and then you're,
Yeah.
yes, I brought my girlfriend to a different country. She already had
Well,
to
now-
adapt to one culture. Now you throw them into the German pool of people, which is also very interesting and hard to adapt, I guess, sometimes. So, but you guys feel well around Germany right now?
Yeah, I had like no German experience. My German is awful. I can't speak a freaking word. I
Yeah.
can speak a couple of words, and most of them can't be repeated on air because they're all swear words and they're rude. But she studied German in school, so it's a lot easier for her. You know, if we go to the supermarket, so we go to somewhere we need to buy tickets or need to talk to someone, I turn to her and say, "Can you ask them what we need?" Because she can have a conversation in German to some extent, whereas
Oh, that's
I
good.
just cannot do it. So it's been a lot more helpful for me that she's here as well, being able to translate and hold my hand and guide me through supermarkets and things like that. Because
That's cool.
oh man, the first time we were in a supermarket and the the cash register, the cashier asked, do you want a receipt? And I just looked at them blankly, like I have no, sorry, I don't speak German. I have no idea. My girlfriend just turns to me, it's like, "Nein, danke." Like, oh, okay, well, we'll walk away now. We didn't want what you were offering.
Okay, that's actually quite interesting. But how's your attitude? Because like when it comes to Toby, for example, he clearly said like he has barely any German friends beyond join Dota. No really attachments to the area or something like that. Not the culture. I think Toby's never gonna learn German in his life, even though living in Germany. But how is your attitude towards this? Because I mean, when I go to a different country, the first thing I gonna do is put a deadline on myself when I master the language. So that's like 6 months to a year. Then I speak the language to a medium or professional level, business level.
Yeah.
But this is me just being very elitist on adaptation. You lived in so many countries. At some point, you might say, screw that. Next year, I might be in another country, so I'm not even gonna start.
Yeah, it's difficult because when I first moved here, I was on like a 6-month trial contract, so I was, sort of unsure how long I'm going to be staying. What if I do put a deadline on myself? If I learn German and I expend this time into it, will it be worth it for me? Now I'm going to be here a little bit longer. I was thinking about doing German lessons about 2 months ago, something along those lines, where I know someone else who just joined the company was going to do them as well, but I need to learn the language. I need to converse with people. If I want to ask someone for something, going and getting a doner kebab or something like that, I want the garlic sauce and not the chili sauce. I want to know how to say I want the freaking garlic sauce. I don't want them putting some random crap on my kebab, Or if I want a certain beer, because again, I bring up the Frankfurt example. I had like zero German knowledge. I went to Frankfurt, go to the bar, ask, ein beer, and they give me a freaking Corona. Okay, well. No, I say no thanks. Can I have one of those? And they are not happy about that. It's obviously on me, the fact that I asked for a beer and
no. I think you're wrong there, because Germans are, like, when it comes to English, also very. I mean, it depends a bit on the region. In cities, you might get lucky and they actually appreciate it, but yeah, they're similar to other countries where they're very proud, or I don't know, maybe also ashamed that they just suck at English. Maybe it's really lack of education, and the foreigner comes and you're suddenly forced into a language where you feel uncomfortable, even though you in your business should be catering to tourists, for example, and that includes speaking English. But I guess that's also, again, my attitude. I also come from a very, very language disabled family that is that maybe influenced me that much, learning so many other languages. So that was pretty much the girlfriend part. I was very much interested in it because not many people, A, commit to go to another country, and B, even bring half of their family with them, as in, like, your second half, pretty much your better half. So talking about JD casters, I mean, many people, like, on Reddit, they say, like, Durka, who? Of course, they know you. You're like the third guy that comes in to join Dota. Like, how is it with the positions? How do you live with the whole thing, being in the shadow or the imaginary shadow?
It's not imaginary though. Like when I joined, it was like clear in my mind that I have big shoes to fill. Like Toby is there. He is at the pinnacle of his career. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers. He is the he is the Dota 2 caster. He's been there the longest. He's probably the most well known or identifiable. Then Cap has progressed massively over the past year. He is now casting at TI5 and probably going to be doing the main event. He's one of the best, and I know that it's been difficult for me. I've kind of put a lot of it down to the he's not Toby syndrome, where people turn on the stream, they go to the JD stream, they're expecting Toby or Cap, and like, who's this guy? Why is he on my screen? What's he doing here? Who is he? Why is he talking to me? So a lot of the sort of bad reception I've got, I took it hard for a good week or so, where I realized, okay, well, I'm not getting good reviews. This is not going great, but it's been amazing having people to talk to, talking to Cap, talking to Blitz, talking to Toby, and realizing that isn't the view of the entire populace. Maybe people aren't following you on Facebook, on Twitter. Maybe people aren't, following you. And if you don't have that instant sort of attractive quality that the viewers want, then maybe you aren't going to instantly get a massive following. OD Pixel is probably the greatest example of that. He's out there, and he basically went from January being sort of casting on, I can't remember what he's casting for you guys. He's casting ESL UK stuff, casting for you guys, casting with Wakey Pixel. Yeah. And now it's a TI5.
Yeah, that was really a success story. I mean, he had some Patreons on the way, and he also has a lot of talent. Obviously, to be honest, what's the funny part about OD Pixel? I mean, I like that guy a lot. Like, I even like his casting, and not everybody likes his style. That's the funny part. Like the whole British accent. On also he's very young and I don't know. Sometimes some puns, but I think the majority of people like it. And even if not, like most of the casters are polarizing anyway. So don't care
Yeah.
about the haters. Care about those who actually like you. But yeah, it was kind of funny because the first thing I told him, man, we really gotta work on your camera. It sucks balls. Like he really joined and was like, I looked at the VOD and I was like, man, what are you doing with this camera? And the funny part is, like, he improved a lot, but still, like, you can actually see the difference between like a normal observer on
I
say
think
on Dream League and him actually having the camera
yeah.
when he casts Face It. It's like day and night. So I think there's
I
still a
think
long way to go.
I think British people have this problem because that was like one of my, or it's still one of my biggest flaws is camera work and knowing how to keep it flowing because I still, even though I have improved since January quite a lot, I still have these moments where I still think of like myself controlling the camera as playing the game. So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
look at a kill and then I'll instantly flick somewhere else to try and catch some more action when, like Toby put this pretty well, people want you to sit and watch where someone died to reflect on the moment. They don't want to instantly be taken, ripped away from that moment and shoved somewhere else. They want to see the kill. They want to see what happens after the kill. They want to reflect on that moment. They want, a little bit of time to say, oh,
Okay.
okay, that happened. Now then you can sort of slowly transition to the next place. But it's little tidbits like that, which, obviously I'm asking for feedback from Toby and Cap, who have learned so much and they've got a massive amount of experience. And building up my own experience is the biggest thing I'm looking at right now.
Okay, that's actually very interesting. So they have like their little, I don't know, in mind choreography, how to do like also certain events in the game, like how long to stay on a certain action even after death
I think
animation.
once Yeah, I think it becomes sort of like muscle memory once you've, got that sort of flow in mind. Once you know, okay, well, I go here to here to here. You don't consciously think about it anymore, so you can concentrate on the casting. But it's one of those things that you definitely have to for a while practice. I've been practicing camera work. I've been watching replays and just like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if I was a viewer, what do I want to see? I want to be seeing this,
Mm.
this, and then okay, how do I move between those things I want to see? Because
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest problem that I've had is transitioning from one piece of action to the other.
Yeah. No, it's actually quite interesting because that's the same way I do it with new casters that really come to me and say like, Hefla, I think I'm a very good guy. I can speak in front of people. I know the game very much, but like I'm bad at camera. How do I cast? How do I podcast and stuff like that? And yeah, I'm actually sitting down with them for hours, and I'm like, yeah, like this is how you do the camera, like smooth drag. Just imagine you're like a Hollywood director and you make a movie out of this game. Like it has to be smooth. Nobody is gonna watch a movie where you have like a shaky hand camera, even though that's also like sort of art style nowadays. But forget about it. In Dota, it's just not gonna work. Okay. So we talked about the little shadow effect, and obviously you're always looking upwards, and you have two guys to look upwards. And I hope this is not an offense, but I mean, when Cap joined, he had pretty much was at the same status you are. It was like, oh my god, I joined Dota. There's Toby, like that big figure, and he has to work his way up. He actually did that quite well, because even Reddit embraces him now for many parts of what he's doing. There's still, of course, the people that never changed it will always hate. The people
Yeah.
that say like, okay, maybe a lot of that is also choreography, fake. We have the same story about Sayori, for example. Those who improve, most people say, that's not even authentic. What are you actually doing towards this besides just looking upwards? You actually have active training or something like that, or it's really just learning by doing?
It's a lot of learning by doing for actual casting, asking for feedback and things like that. But then there's also like social media aspects of it. I've been getting feedback from the social or the community managers at Freaks for You. So they do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, Twitter, social media work for
Okay.
their partners, for other companies. So I don't know if you've seen my Facebook and Twitter recently have been pretty active with all sorts of funny pictures and interesting quotes and things like that, little videos. And
Yeah.
it's a lot
SEO.
of it's sort of putting content out there, but yeah, it's the same situation Cap had where the first 6, 7, 8 months he had a lot of hate, and I think he's the one I've bonded with a lot since I've been here, just because we've had very similar experiences. Knowing that I've got room to grow and I've got the backing of Join Dota and Toby and Cap and Blitz, and obviously there's Melk, Zoe, and
Yeah.
everyone there as well. But it's it's nice to know that if it's kind of weird thinking that if I'd gone, my direct route, and not joined Dota and thought, okay, I'm going to make this my vocation. I'm going to become a caster. And I've been hit by the Reddit, sort of hate train. Like, oh, who is this guy? What's he doing?
Oh yeah.
I probably would have stopped. I wouldn't have gone actively looking like to ask people, okay, what do I do? Has anyone had this experience before? And maybe this is something that a lot of other people, a lot of other casters have had as well, where they read one nasty comment on YouTube and they're like, well, nice. What do I do now? Is this the truth? Do I ask someone else how they feel about this? Do I look for feedback or anything like that? But it's great to have emotional support basically
Yeah.
ready and available.
How do you actually get your feedback? I mean, we have some sources already mentioned. You said, of course, your peers, like the casters you're looking up to, maybe even, of course, other casters, because you're watching other casters. Obviously, just like every other esport guy is doing that. You have social media, Reddit, obviously. But are there any other sources? Is it like someone like maybe even not esport related? Because sometimes that's also like an interesting view on things. Your mom watching a stream, she says like, "Why are you talking that way? Why are you pronouncing it?" No, something like that. It's
Oh,
sometimes really interesting.
I yeah, I no. If I asked my mum to watch one of my casts, I would assure you she'd say that. Like, why do you have that accent? Because I have like a morphing accent. If I'm casting with an American, my accent sort of slightly sort of shifts
Yeah.
towards the American spectrum. If I'm casting with Toby, I start going a little more British, not Australian. I go more British to try and counteract his Australianness.
Yeah.
But no, I've never asked sort of family members or anything outside of esports to give feedback. The biggest ones, like I've asked Toby and Kat for feedback, but I've asked Blitz more. I ask a lot of my co-casters for feedback because obviously they're the ones on the front lines that they're in the game, they're listening, they know what I'm looking at, they know what I'm talking about, and I think they're often the best ones to give feedback. They have listened to you directly through Skype or through TeamSpeak in the actual game, so they know. Okay, well, you said this. It was a little bit weird. Sometimes maybe they forget the moment, but I think it's nice to get feedback from your co-casters as well.
Yeah, that's true. We also flame each other, which is like a very constructive thing. You just insult the other guy. Everybody knows it's just for fun, but it's better than like that awkward sitting together, like, oh, I think you could do that better and stuff like that. I guess that's how it's always works amongst peers. Talking about amongst peers, so the whole shadow thing, and like, is there an actual ranking in Join Dota? Like, for example, when it comes to events, let's say tomorrow is a big event. Join Dota gets asked to put talents on that event for coverage, commentary, etc. Who gets the event right now? Is there a ranking? Is there like, well, this is definitely a Toby thing. This is something where we could send Durka and Cap, or is it just a scheduling thing? How does Join Dota do that?
It's a mix of a number of things. It comes down to a lot of the time, the actual event managers themselves, they'll come to join Dota and ask for specific talent. They'll say, okay, we want Toby to do the grand finals, we want Toby and Cap to do this, or we want Blitz and Toby to do that. And then Melk is in charge of sort of, selling the talent.
Yeah.
They obviously they try and push for as much talent as they can. They try and get me to MLG, trying to get me to other events and things like that. Sometimes there's no budget, but for the event managers themselves. But I don't know if there's an actual tiering, but obviously within the company, there's obviously, Toby, Cap, and Blitz are the premier talent for Dota 2 in our company. Then there's Zoe, who does panel work and interviews and things like that. So that's sort of her role she takes. So if there is a ladder, I'm down at the bottom somewhere for Dota 2.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I've got a long way to climb.
Okay, so pretty much Melk is the center point. He's the agent. He's trying to sell the
Is
talent, and then of course he's trying it alongside the value. But the valuation is also coming from the outside. I mean, if it was about your peers, they would probably say like, man, like of course get Durka, of course that's something, I don't know, natural choice. While outsiders, they are like rather looking for numbers. They of course want to have a Cap because he's right now on a good wave of feedback on social
Of course.
media, or Toby because he's just like the primordial soup of Dota itself. Okay, that's very interesting. So yeah, I mean Toby explained it already in the last week's podcast, that like the whole studio thing anyway, besides having the opportunity to stand in a studio, produce in a studio, which of course makes other casters that cast from home very jealous, because there are like a whole lot opportunities you have there instead of like the bedroom cast. But besides that, yeah, very interesting that it's going more towards like a talent agency. And then of course being in an agency that is like one of the first agencies where organizers go to and ask like, hey, I need free casters, give me please free casters, and then they just pitch them in all the affiliates plus of course the studio internal casters pretty much. So I guess you're in a good position, so it's the good career step. TI invites, and I hope this is not gonna be awkward. I mean, was there hope? Be honest. Was there hope?
Of course, like you dream of being
Yes.
invited to TI5. You hope you'll get invited. I didn't expect, and I don't think that looking at the people that were invited and knowing that it's the premier event of the year, I don't think I deserved an invite. The performance or the sort of following I have that goes with it. I don't think that casting at TI5 as my first real LAN event should be the thing. I did D2CL, which was sort of a LAN we held in the JD offices, but casting my first big international, I don't think that should have been the step. I don't know how it was viewed before, but I've heard that people had the feeling that previous TIs, TI1, TI2, maybe TI3, were seen as I don't know, a reward for casters or community figures saying, "Oh, you did a great job this year,"
Yes,
back when there
yeah.
weren't that many. But this year, there are so many people. There are so many people that have done, hard work, Mort, Pimpmuckle, Blaze, Basekip. There's a multitude of people that could have been invited. But when you look at the numbers and you think, okay, well, 20 or so were invited last year, 20 have been invited this year. Okay, maybe Valve could have increased the number by 5, but what does that give them? It doesn't really give them an increase in, the actual production value, doesn't give them an increase. Maybe it reduces the level that casters have to work at. They work for what, a couple of hours less over the 2 weeks or whatever TI runs for, but it just makes sense for Valve.
So it's more the, let's say, the community reward system to the, well, we run an event, we just want the best talent,
Yeah.
we just pick it, and that's it. I mean, Toby kind of explained it that the prize pool also plays a role. Because like in the last years, it always felt like that the prize pool was sort of an accident that happened. It's like, oh, let's make that $1 million tournament, and then, ooh, oh, look at that, 10 million, 40 million, woo. Like everybody was like, wow, what's that? But like, I mean, this year, nobody's surprised. Everybody is like,
Fully expecting it.
yeah, like everybody is counting on it. Like everybody knows it's going way beyond 50 million. And now the question is, the only question mark in the entire thing is how high does it go? And that all being said, Toby really literally said, so Valve just has to step it up. They want to go on big production. They want to push it on TV. And that is pretty much the reason, some casters are not getting in. But don't you think that's maybe even a bit of a disconnect with the community?
That they don't invite certain casters?
Yeah, because I mean, like the years before, it was always that spectrum of casters, and you really represented pretty much everyone who had some sort of significance in the Dota 2 scene. And now we come to the whole point is like, okay, who's the best talent, who's best known, who has the best affiliation and networking, and of course also previous history. It comes down to, yeah, really like the normal thing. Like now the TI is nothing but like the other tournament around the corner, pretty much.
I think they have to set themselves up like this, and they've got to sort of, I don't know, set the precedent now of the TI being like this rather than it being like previous TIs, just because the majors are coming up.
Yeah.
Because they know that the majors are going to be such a great source of income that they have to have really great quality control on these majors that I don't know if they're looking at TI as being like the control group for this. They're testing the waters to see, okay, this group of talent worked. Let's see if we take a third of this talent, move it to this major, a third of the talent, move it to that major, and if that's how they want to look at it. But I'm pretty sure that the upcoming majors have a massive sort of factoring in to why they've chosen the talent the way they've done this way.
Okay, that's very interesting. What's also for me sometimes interesting to see is like when Reddit goes for a simple name. And I don't want to mention any name because that's something you should never do, of course, especially not if something goes public, because everybody's working hard. Of most of the people we could mention by name, but I think Reddit also has sometimes, for example, the habit that I call it circle jerking, and I don't mean the normal circle jerking. It's also many people I saw comments on Reddit like, "Oh man, that guy that worked so much this year and everything," and then truth is he's a friend of yours and or just an acquaintance, and the fact is he actually spent 11 out of 12 months since the TI4 at university, casted about 50 games, and then people like just go on Reddit and he says like, oh, he worked so hard, he deserves his TI5 slot and everything, and you have that for many people that like, I don't know, what they see, what they want to see, what's actually happening is so totally off. Is that something you, I don't know, see yourself? I mean, you're, for example, let's say it on the third position in the caster ranking on Join Dota, which means you get a lot of MLG content that might also not be the top content as such. You cast a lot, but is there actually a reward? Does anyone make a thread like, wow, Durka is casting 12 hours in a row, 14 hours in a row, like 6 days a week, and that guy is working so hard? No, at the end, it's just like, wow, look, Cap, he casted that one game last week, something like that. It's just a out of the air example, but you get what I mean,
Yeah.
right?
Something that, Toby said to me, I talked about the emotional backup that I've had when I had one of these moments where, a Reddit thread came out saying, well, why is Durka a caster at Join Dota, something like that. I went and talked to people like, okay, well, this is some feedback that I've been given from Reddit. What do I do about it? And he said, don't worry, man, you're working hard. You've been doing this MLG content, you're learning the teams, you're learning the trade. I look at the first 6 months of this as basically like an apprenticeship. I've been working my ass off to try and learn how to be one of the best. That's what I'm aiming for. Like Cap was saying, I'm aiming for this in steps. I'm aiming for my first LAN event that I do for JD. I'm then aiming maybe next year TI. Fingers crossed. We'll look to see where that goes for. But Toby said to me, "You'll prove yourself as you'll prove yourself as a caster, one day." Oh God, I've forgotten what the freaking quote was. But he basically said to me, "You'll prove yourself to the community one day," and that's what I'm looking at now. Is that even if you do all this hard work and not naming names, but there are a lot of people who do it, they're still waiting for that one moment, that one game where the community goes, "Holy crap, this is a guy we want to listen to." And some people have had those games. Some people have had those moments. Cap, Toby have had those, ridiculous games where they're like, Toby at the at ESL1, was it? Oh God, I can't remember. One of the games where he literally didn't breathe. He did this full team fight for a good 4 minutes. Didn't freaking make an audible breath, but he was obviously doing his whole casting magic, breathing through his nose and talking at the same time like a trumpet player or something. But eventually you'll get one of those moments, and that's when it's going to click.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, there's of course one thing that's kind of important. Like you talk about that one moment, the exposure moment that all of the casters are waiting for. That kind of scales with the significance of the game as well. So, top tier content is top exposure. Like sometimes, I don't know, you see people casting and grinding, let's say for example MLG content that's like normal group stage. Now people pay attention, maybe also the scheduling was just bad because there was here final, there final, and it was parallel, right? So nobody really noticed that, and then sometimes you have that one game, it's the only content at the moment online, or it's their game of the season, and then people are like, wow, why did I never see this caster? I've never seen you before. And then you're like, man, I just casted, I don't know, 100 hours last week. How can you just miss that if you even follow the content and stuff like that? So that's of course also something. That's why I asked, like, how is the priority in Join Dota? Like, who gets what content? And is there maybe some of the bigger ones saying like, you know what, I get the viewers together on this game by myself, maybe by the personality, we're gonna pitch Durka a better game, just, to have the better promo, the better exposure.
Yeah,
It's a business decision.
Well, yeah, I've been given a couple of the bigger games. I think the best example was D2CL. The lead up to the LAN event, I was given quite a lot of the D2CL content to sort of give me some of the bigger name teams. The Empire, the NIP, the bigger teams there, the VG, and that was great to do. The fact that I could actually, outside of researching and watching, I could actually cast their games, and it was a great experience for me. So it definitely does get taken into account. Okay, he's been casting tier 2, tier 3 teams for the past week and a half or the past 5 days. Let's give him one of these big games.
Okay, that's interesting. I want to go away from this because like it's something I could talk hours about it,
Oh
but we also
yes.
have to keep it interesting for the rest of the people that want to have like a bigger picture around the person Durka and the caster. Before we actually came into this talk, you mentioned something to me like the Dota 2 nomenclature, which is around like what kind of words we use at the moment and how they change depending on the meta. Can you elaborate this? And is this, by the way, part of the non-casting content you're working on, or is this just something that's
This
coming
is
from you?
this is just one of those things that it doesn't really grind my gears, but it's one of my sort of pet peeves where when I sit down and I think about, I watch back my old casts and I think about, hang on a second, I'm using the words like carry, I'm using the words like support.
Yeah,
When you look at this Winter Wyvern and you say, okay, he's a support, what do you mean by this? Do you mean he's going to be buying wards? Is that what support means? Is he going to be harassing people? Is that what, like, the words carry and supports, they are archaic, obsolete words that don't have any real
yeah,
meaning or bearing in the games that we watch today, because a carry can be a Storm Spirit mid. He can carry the game. It can be a Crystal freaking Maiden with a Blink Dagger and a BKB that carries the game from a
yeah.
from a support position.
But
And
that's by the way the same problem I had with the positioning and the numbering, because it was like you have metas where suddenly the roles change, the lanes change, and everything, and
yeah,
then it's totally confusing. So I never really started to use it in the first
like
place.
when you looked at the 5-roll Earthshaker, what, 4 months ago, when a lot of the Chinese teams or European teams even were using Earthshaker as a hero that sat mid, protected the Shadow Fiend or Queen of Pain,
Yeah,
and he was a support. But then 15 minutes in, you'd look at him and you're like, holy crap, he got a Blink Dagger. How did he get this? Because he went from the 5-roll into basically the 2-roll. He
yeah,
got farm priority over the mid, he got farm priority sometimes even over the actual sort of carry hero,
yeah,
because the actual prioritization of that specific item, the Blink Dagger and Earthshaker, was so important. So there's not just shifting of naming within sort of in the meta itself. You sort of switch from the old days where there were two supports, a carry, a mid, and an off lane, and that was the naming system. It was simple, it was easy because that's what you do. There was very easily defined roles then.
yeah,
Now you're looking at heroes which they change within the games. You look at a hero like Dazzle, you think, okay, well, he's going to be zoning people out. He's primarily a zoning hero. He's going to be sitting high up in the lane, like a Witch Doctor does, right-click the crap out of the enemy, and then what does he do? He goes and stacks and pulls the jungle. He goes and,
yeah.
heroes like that, I think, are the most well-rounded support heroes in general, but it's hard to allocate these names, and I think one of the things that Valve maybe has to start looking at, the little shields that you get on the hero portraits in game, where it
Yeah.
says there's good at pushing, they're nuker, they're
Oh
disabler.
god, that is the worst
It's
thing ever.
it's so messy. It like
Yeah.
giving heroes traits like that means that, okay, it gives people a good idea how the hero might work,
Yeah. But
but
it's like a
Dota
more
is
starter guide, isn't it? Like, I mean, go to the freaking menu, go to jungler, and you have half the heroes missing that are actually, if you play it correctly, viable for a jungle, right? So it's more of a starter guide. It's like those they will just point at those heroes where you can really just stand there, and then spin to win or lifesteal to win with whatever. So it's more of a starter guide. But you actually thinking about this, but do you actually put this in words like vocally or like as in letters in a blog or something like that?
There was a Reddit thread that came up, and it's one of the things that sort of clicked it for me. I talked about it on cast before with people like Nahas, sort of
Hmm.
a 2 minute or 3 minute spiel where there's nothing going on in the game, and we start, spitballing about naming systems. I think one of the biggest things was the Earthshaker example again. I didn't want to call him a support, didn't want to call him a core hero, didn't want to call him anything really apart. He was a holding hero. He was holding a lane. He was holding someone's hand, and
Yeah.
I kind of made this football analogy where I saw him as the sort of the Makelele or the Steven Gerrard, the Patrick Vieira of Dota 2.
Yeah.
You don't notice him until he needs to be noticed, and then he comes out, he destroys you, or he saves his teammate, he saves the game for you. But I did a small like Reddit reply to a thread where someone basically the title here I found it, Valve, please change carry to core in the new pick screen. So they wanted the name carry to be removed completely, to
Yeah.
be renamed to core, because obviously now we use the word core for people that get 1 to 3 farm priority kind of thing. And I basically just went on to say our entire naming system is a mess. A lot of it's obsolete, but the biggest problem is that you can't pigeonhole heroes.
No,
You
you can't.
can't
No, yeah.
you can't pigeonhole players. Like every single player on every single hero in every single game, there are so many different permutations of this that you're never going to be able to say, okay, this player on this hero is going to be doing this thing because they're always going to change and adapt to what's going on in the game.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. But now, of course, comes my question because I'm always a guy who wants, I don't know, to plant a tree, build a house, yada yada yada, like the substantial things. Like, how could you actually put this into, yeah, some sort of form? I mean, I'm not asking you to do content right now because you're probably gonna be busy with your Join Dota stuff. I'm not trying to steal the idea. I mean, I like it, but I mean, Reddit thread is one thing, but a Reddit thread is just vanishing into the internet nirvana at some point.
Yeah.
A blog, well, for that you actually need to be a person. It could also be something that helps you to become a person, but okay. Like, is there actually any way we could do this? I mean, that's like not actually us doing it. You know what I mean? Like, putting it into the community.
This is one of the problems I had, and this is probably one of the reasons I had considered a blog, and I talked about people before, and they did the same thing as you, like write a blog about it, put your thoughts out there. But the biggest issue with this is that you can't make up terms or make up words on your own and expect them to be accepted. So even if you have a great idea and you say, okay, this Earthshaker is a holding hero, he's not a support, and he's holding in this position, and that's his role name. People aren't just going to say, yeah, that's right, that's what we're going to call it. They have to be used like in a cast more than once, and you've sort of got to slip them in over time, and then they become accepted. I think a prime example of this is gap closer. The phrase gap closer was not used at all until like 7 months ago. No one used it in Dota 2 until 7 months ago when heroes like Drow Ranger, like Spectre were picked up and like, okay, well, we need a hero that can jump. We need a hero that can catch. We need a hero that can gap close. Hey, gap close. Everyone starts using this phrase because it fits so perfectly. So until you have this sort of epiphany moment where 3 or 4 casters start using the same phrase, that they'll become accepted. I just feel like I don't know, the naming system needs to be a little bit fresher than it is currently, but actually getting this to happen is incredibly difficult. Maybe a blog will help. Maybe, casters will read a blog and appropriate one of these naming terms and then it gets pushed out, but I don't know.
What about the bad nomenclature? Because I got into Dota casting around like the big Toby era. So I still find myself sometimes saying Quaddle Blast. I don't know. Sometimes even like I don't even want to, but I say Rod of Aoi. Like, what about this? Like, you think that should be completely, I don't know, just get rid of all these bad words that some caster made up and that somehow got traction?
See, I think things like that are okay. Like the 2 examples you gave are okay because they're like little nuances of your cast. Cottle Blast, that's a Toby thing. Pugna Blast, PL Blast, whatever blast. That's a Toby thing. You hear that, you're like, Toby one, he's casting right now. I think they're fine. Some people call Medusa the Snake Lady. It's the little things like that that give your cast flavor. And maybe you're not perfectly saying, okay, Medusa the hero is moving off to mid lane, saying the Snake Lady is going down the river, something like that. It's fine. I'm not so sure about like the pronunciation of words though. Let's take Aegis the Immortal for example. There are 2 pronunciations of that word, Aegis and Aegis. And I know
Aegis,
Toby does not use either of those pronunciations. There's things like that. He says Aegis.
Aegis, yeah, like with a hard G, pretty much.
But
like Aegis,
then again, it's also one of those Toby nuances. You know that it's Toby casting because he says it like that. So it's hard to differentiate between things that are wrong and should be changed and things that are wrong but are so ingrained in the casting style that changing them would demean or break what's so good about the cast. Yeah.
And then you can also not forget that, like, of course, the more famous this person is, or it doesn't even have to be about fame, but like, for example, quantity or like a quality cast, as in like he is on the most significant matches, then it's maybe even just trend setting. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time in mankind's history that like a mistake actually becomes a real thing, and then I guess that's how Quaddle Blast was, for example, born, and I don't get it out of my head. So thanks, Toby, for that one.
Oh god, chat. Visage.
Yeah, visage. coup de grace, visage. Nobody says visage. Lich? Like,
Kuturas.
is it lich or lich? Like, some people say lich, some people say lich.
I don't know. I don't know about that one. I say lich, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, coup de grace. I mean, that's kind of easy because like from French, like you really can actually look those words up and go to DixC and then just let a French computer speak it out or like a guy. That's easy. But the other stuff is like you never know where this is. For example, oh, there was a Reddit thread I think this very week or even this very day because we had the winter wyvern topic there. Someone was
Oh yeah, I
posting.
saw that.
Yeah, and it's winter wyvern, but like for example, one caster I even co-casting with, he says viverin.
Riven. Yeah.
Some say vivern, and I don't know. I don't even know why I said wyvern. It was just me being a stupid foreigner, and I just thought, okay, the native English guys they see a Y, so it's just wyvern. Wyvern, yeah, it makes sense. Sounds relatively good. We just go for it. So they actually posted they posted like this Reddit thread, and then the typical Reddit insults like clueless casters don't know how to pronounce this and that and whatnot, lack of education, bullshit. You should read that thread. It's hilarious.
Oh,
Like,
I
wow.
found it. Yeah.
It's kind of hilarious, but it's interesting that like everybody also has like a different approach. Like till today, nobody knows if it's visage or if it's visage.
Well, like in French, it's visage.
Yeah.
But like English, see, the problem is that the English language has appropriated French words and made them English. Like visage is the English pronunciation of it, but the French pronunciation is visage. Then there's other words like we use. Oh God. What else do we use from French? We use a bunch of French words where we actually use the French pronunciation. None of them come to mind right now. I actually thought about this before because at the TI, déjà vu. That's a great example. Thank you. So we actually say déjà vu. Well, we half do. We half kind of say that déjà vu,
Yeah.
but
You say boulevard, or
we say boulevard with a D at the end.
yeah, you actually speak the R
Yeah.
D there, but yeah, okay, yeah, we have. I mean, that's something anyway. Like people always think that their version is right, and of course Reddit always thinks they're right anyway. So that's very interesting. But I don't know if anyone has a good idea, guys, how to actually put I don't know some sort of content around how to say things, nomenclature, how misleading certain things actually are, and what changes in the meta that like the carry name as such is outdated. That would really be interesting to put it in sort of content, but right off the top of my head, I wouldn't even know how to really make that work because a blog is not enough unless you really want to write, I don't know, pages long.
And a thesis. Let's write a thesis on Dota 2
thesis.
nomenclature. Yeah.
And it might be outdated the next week. That's the funny part. Ice Rock is coming up with the patch, and you can delete your blog pretty much.
Yeah.
That's
a good point. Drag and drop. I think that is on Dota Talk TV.
Yeah.
Best of two. Best of two is like my biggest pet peeve, and I even catch myself saying it. I even catch myself saying it because that's how ingrained it is into.
No, you know why? No, that's for example for me, it's a simple story. If you think about it, best of two, it's the most retarded things to say, right? The problem is that like 99% of the people that come to a stream, like let's say for example join Dota League, it's a best of two format. It's a 2-game series format to be very correct. But they use BO2 because like that's the format how it's mostly set in a stream title, in the score, moobot, whatever. So I just adapted it because if I say a 2-game series, people ask me 100 fucking times in the Twitch chat, how many games are left? And then 2 games are played, and they ask me,
where's the third game?
Where's the third game? You know,
Yep.
it's like
I've had that so many times.
In the end, I give it up. I burn a bit of my brain, and I just say best of two. I'm done with it, and people understand me.
Give yourself a lobotomy and just remove the part that gets pissed off at the best of two.
Yes, that's how it came. So that's a simple explanation from my side. I don't know how other people handle it, but sometimes you just have to give in to the majority of people. I know that sounds stupid and without a backbone, but, well, it's just a communication thing.
Yeah. like for me, it's kind of similar to people, misusing your and you are. You are the
Yeah,
abbreviation. So it's
it's
like if
horrible.
they type that out, that's horrible. But it's kind of the same thing for me that I cannot physically do it. Maybe I catch myself doing it because I've been in a conversations with someone that said best of two, and my brain, keeps on that train of thought, and I say best of two back, something like that. But it was an argument that I got in with a lot of people before in Dota as well. Short lane and long lane, and
Oh,
this is an argument like as
yeah,
old as Dota goes freaking back.
yeah.
And I know a lot of professional players use short lane. A lot of casters use short lane to mean the carry lane. Wait, short lane to mean the
No,
safe lane.
no, short lane is the off lane. No, I have no idea. I never worked
See,
around this terminology.
no,
Like,
but they use it to say the safe lane is the short lane because they think that, oh well, the reasoning is that the creep wave moves the shortest distance and meets closer to your tier one tower, and that's why it's called the short lane.
yeah,
But like even on Play Dota, the original definitions and things like that, the short lane. If you look at the actual layout of the map, the shortest lanes are the off lanes because if you actually draw a box around the lanes and you actually, you
mm,
know, see which one is shortest and longest, the actual physical lanes themselves, it's the opposite. So that was, either way, whichever's right, whichever's wrong, they're both, acceptable in some degree if you've got reasoning behind it.
it's
But
just very
that's
confusing, actually. I
yeah,
mean,
well, that's the thing. That's one of
yeah,
the nomenclature. That's one of the naming systems that we have to, I think, remove completely. We've got to use safe lane. We've got to use off lane. We've got to use
yeah,
hard lane, whatever. But we cannot use short lane and long lane because they are,
yeah.
completely obsolete.
But I mean, that's also kind of a funny part because I mean, for example, the Dire off lane becomes at some point the Radiant safe lane.
Well,
I
that's
don't
the
know.
thing. If
What is the border actually there? Is it the river? That's why I'm always like, I mean, if you actually cast, I mean, you have your camera on it. So I mean, you're on the Radiant side, and you just say like, okay, they just killed him here in the safe lane. So obviously you're not talking about right some kilometers north, somewhere in the Dire area of that safe lane. So I think that's kind of safe, self-explanatory. Is that the correct word? Safe,
yeah.
self-explaining, whatever. Yeah.
See, also like if you block off your creeps, if you're a clockwork on the dire off lane and you block your creeps, you suddenly turned this long lane into a short lane, so it becomes like completely meaningless. But this image, I'll just post it to you. That's the one. That's like the definition I use. If you look at the actual length of the lanes, I always went by the actual, from base to end of the lane, and you
Oh
look
yeah.
at
Yeah.
like the map changes. You can see where the radiant side ends and it becomes dark trees, and it turns to dire side. You can see where it ends, but
Yeah. So short is off, long is safe.
yeah. But
Obviously.
then professional players, I know Blitz and Hani, I know Purge, Toby, they use it the opposite way to mean where the creeps meet. So the off laner has to run a further distance, like away from his tier one tower to where
Yeah.
the creeps meet, and that's where the lane is. But it's it's just a naming system that we shouldn't use anymore.
But I think yeah, but I think by now I don't know what they of course use amongst the players. Even though I got to meet some of them and I also play with some of them, but actually I haven't heard long and short lane in a long time. I don't know, maybe the old school guys are still, still on it.
Yeah,
Who knows?
I
Okay.
know.
I have to actually cut it out here. I mean, not cut it immediately, but I just want to make a transition into our bedtime. Pretty much, it's A, very late, and B, the interview is going really long already. I always tell my people on Reddit or social media that I will definitely work that question in. That already happened. So shout out to all those people who actually submitted the question. There is something, however, that I just couldn't work in without bluntly asking, where does your name come from?
I saw this question,
Yes,
and
the racial
that's
slur one.
that is the fourth time I've heard this, and I've asked each of the people apart from this guy where they sort of get this from. My name originally comes from South Park, where the word derp, DERP.
Yeah,
Derp and Durka were both words used in South Park as meaningless words. Durka, derpa, durka, derpa, derp. They took her gerbs, that kind of thing. And I didn't use it for a while until I started playing on Garena, and I played with a lot of Macedonians, Russians, a lot of people that used Cyrillic or Russian, and Durka or Dirka meant sort of like an insane asylum. So I thought, hey, that's a pretty fun name, Insane Asylum. I'll use that now. And then obviously, Team America comes out. I still don't understand. Well, I still don't see it as being like a
Well, I
racial
googled it.
slur.
Like I googled it. You would be surprised. Like according to a lot of sources, like Durka means like a retarded Mid Eastern Arabic guy.
Oh, really?
Like in short, in my words, pretty much. Like of course there are nicer words to describe this, or even worse words to describe that, but that's what it means. I'm not sure if they refer on Reddit, like if they go into that direction, but well, I just assumed it, so I just googled it and I was like Urban Dictionary, and they're like all the entries are, for example, on this. So
Urban Dictionary, yeah.
yeah, well, I know
But
what you're
yeah,
about to say.
well, no. Well, back to the three people I'd asked before. We're all from the USA. I've never heard like this. I've never heard this term used as a racial slur in Europe or anything like that. Obviously, I lived in the Saudi for 3 years. So the first time I got asked this question, where someone said, "Oh, I've got a friend who doesn't want to follow you on Twitter because of your name," I thought, "Huh, why?" And I replied back on Ask FM, like, what's the reason?" He said he linked me that Urban Dictionary, the thread of it, and I
Yeah,
went straight to ask like my Jordanian, my Lebanese, Saudi friends, and they were like,
they had no idea.
"What?"
Never heard
Like
of.
they had never heard it before, so I just sort of shrugged it off. But I don't know. With like the fourth time I hear it, I'm sort of wondering, is it worth looking into and considering maybe changing name? It's definitely something that I've thought of, but I'm still kind of on the fence about this. But for me, it's not. If it is for other people, I don't know where to go with it.
Okay, we have two more questions from Reddit. The one thing is, of course, a relatively good one. It's a standard one that would I a question I would ask you on an event if I had the 10 question interview with you. What is your most proud esports moment? I mean, I guess he means like, what is your highlight, pretty much in your career so far?
Um, it's that's a difficult one. I think it's probably casting my first UK LAN event with Pyrian Flax, I-49. I think that's probably my proudest one, which got me started. But then there's obviously casting at IESF and D2CL,
Yeah.
which was great for me as well. I think I'd still put the P-Flax one ahead just because it was my first event and like the euphoria you get from a first LAN event with someone as famous as P-Flax.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Or casting it on LAN at all, like it's just a totally different feeling. I mean, you can have 30,000 people on a stream. That's just a number. But if you suddenly in front of 100 people, or 500 people, 1,000 people, then yeah, it gets different. And there was one more. Everything else I pretty much worked in already. Where is it? Oh yeah, that was actually a funny one. Can you ask him if it's ever possible to have a beer with him and the other Join Dota guys? And that I'm not gonna ask this, but I'm gonna ask like, are you guys interacting with people like for example in Join Dota? Are there people sometimes coming in that just like get like a studio tour, or is there like a fan of you on Twitter and says like, man, Durka, I'm living pretty much right next to you. Let's have a beer and talk about Dota.
I don't think the latter one has happened to me yet, unless like a message has got lost into the ether of the internet. No one said, "Hey, let's go get a beer." I think they used to do studio tours here, but they don't anymore. Obviously, there's more of the company now. There's a lot more than just JD. So letting someone in and walking around the studio isn't really feasible. But yes, it will be possible to have a beer with me at least. TI5's coming up, and there's obviously going to be pub stomps in Berlin,
Yep.
which I'll probably be going to. So depending on where it is or when it is, hopefully there'll be a good one. I've heard that the Meltdown here is pretty small, so maybe someone sets up a big pub stomp event in I don't know Spandau in Berlin somewhere. Then yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's the option. So I think that's pretty much all the question answered. And with this, I would like to wrap this up. I think we got a lot of nice information out of you, Durka. Also, like beyond the 10 question stuff, and well, it was very nice actually talking with you. Now is your opportunity to give a shout out to all the people you like, love, or hate.
Oh, oh! Shout out to Kit Kat who's sitting next to me, my girlfriend. You can, I don't
She's
know if you can
also in the
see her
hitbox chat
waving.
here.
Yeah, you can
I saw
check her
that.
out at KitKat_Dota on Twitter. She posts memes and cat pictures and things like that.
Oh
But
my god.
also if you're interested in JD VODs, a lot of the TI5 hub VODs, all of D2CL, ESL, all of the VOD stuff gets uploaded by her. All of the little tags you see that say skip draft and skip to gameplay is all done by her as well.
Just doing the grunt work in the background.
Yep,
Yeah.
the database wizard. Um, Shout out to who else? People in chat. Shout out to Drag and Drop and Knoxville and people for dropping in. It's been fun reading you guys trolling me. It's
Yeah.
been good, but
Yeah.
just
Oh.
shout out to everyone. I'm gonna do the cheesy thing. There are no
Oh yeah.
individuals outside of those guys. Just
I
I
love
love
you
you.
all. I love you all. Oh, by the way, like that's one thing I'm gonna push in because I can. You actually play a lot of in-houses. I mean, yesterday or 2 days ago they asked me like, hey, you want to play in-house? So I came into that saying Deviant stats. Also, shout out to those guys. They do amazing stat work, and they are pretty much working around almost all the English casters now. Every single studio or label out there is working
Yeah.
with some of them. So yeah, good guys. I even had for the last 3 days for that Chinese tournament, I had like one guy following us through, and he was for the majority like more than 10 hours statsing, very good. And even though he calls himself an apprentice, I think he did a good job. It's like he's my personal card, pretty much. No, but you actually interact with those people, which is a cool thing. So you're also like still connected to, I don't know, the lesser people. Let's call it like this.
See that's the thing. I've never seen myself as being like above other people, even if they see it that way. You know, I still play in a couple of UK in-house league games. I had the itch. You know, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I went back to the UK in-house league, and I went back and I was like, right, I'm going to play some games here. I've missed you guys. I could join the team speak. Let's hear the British memes again. Hearing about Danny D and all the lovely British people once again. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, I think keeping in touch with the people that you work with or people that work for you, or you know, whatever manner of sort of link you have with them, you've got to keep that link.
Yeah. Okay, and I think this was pretty much the final word. Keeping the link with the community. Durga is one of those guys who will never lose it, I guess. And well, I personally wish you, of course, good luck in Germany. Don't let the Germans get to you. Good luck, of course, around the Join Dota studios. You have, well, we will see if the travels are bumpy or not. Or if you give up on the way, or I don't know, maybe tomorrow you're gonna be famous and better than Toby. Who knows? Everything can happen on this planet. That's pretty much the funny part about it. I want to thank you for all the people that just are here in the stream, as well as then later on SoundCloud or YouTube. And yeah, the last story. I'm also trying to not lose touch with the community. That's why I played, for example, Invoker Gyrocopter with you, and we carried that game through. And of course, shout out from my side goes to 2P. They're gonna write up a nice bullet article about this podcast here, so people that are just too lazy to listen, or they just have too many other things to do, they can actually read up on some important things you said, and that all is gonna be promoted then, of course, on Reddit and their site and social media. So guys, give that likes and retweets and whatever buttons you can click on the social media stuff. That helps me, that helps Dorka, that helps everyone. If you want to support it, that's cool. And of course, the last shout out goes to Hitbox, supporting this show, making it possible. First of all, we can stream it here. They like it, that's why they want to support it. And then the more love you give it, the more and the longer it comes. Well, no, the more comes and the longer it goes. English is hard, apparently. No, 48 hours no sleep is a bad thing. I'm gonna get a big bunch of sleep, and then we come back for next episode, and maybe in some month we're gonna look back on what we talked today here, Dorka, and then look at the progress.
Time to hibernate.
Yes, time to
Thanks for having me.
See you guys.
See ya.